Depending on the situation, you don't always have somebody blocking at your wrist. So we're going to demonstrate the same traps from the initial video, but this is an alternate option in case somebody blocks at your elbow. Now if they're on the forearm, it's up to you to judge whether to go inside or outside, but if someone's clearly on your forearm, it does really change the exercise quite a bit. Somebody who's just doggedly not going to cross their center, even if you're hitting them, they're going to try to move and protect. This is a good skill to have. When I make my initial entry from the bridge, he's now on my forearm. So what you'll feel from practicing this is he's not really crossing. His position's not terrible. And that means that I have to come up with a different strategy. If I try to do that roll, he's going to be able to ride my elbow and control me, which is not what I want. If I go to come up from here to try to move this, I'm actually trapping myself, and I don't want to put myself in that position. So learning to feel where he is on my center is really the essential part and why we have these alternative trap techniques. So I'm going to go through each one in the main two and then the alternatives, which are adding your same side hands, which would be front to front or rear to rear. When I make my initial entry, he blocks. I thought I was going to hit him. He put his hand in the way. So my front trap is to take this hand that's out here, and I'm going to do it two different ways. One is to take my front hand and bring it down and in towards his body, and then come up with the back hand, and that's my front to rear position. So what I'm doing from there is I'm taking an inside slap, or inside grab, and then making the strike. I'm not crazy about this because this hand pretty much goes free. A trap happens when someone's off balance. It has nothing to do with their arms being crossed. So this time, when I make that option and I feel he's on my forearm, I'm just going to pull. Right there he had to take a step. This arm's cocked back and ready to go, but my arm is going to ride that arm. I'm not going to go over here and let that arm go free because he's either going to block my punch or he's going to come right over the top and hit me with it. I don't want to end up exposing in that way. So as soon as I make that entry, I pull from that side and strike. Watch it again. I block, strike. I slide down, quick strike as he's adjusting. Now if he wants to punch me with this hand, if I pull, that arm's going to go away for a second. So there's this thing called a cross extensor reflex. If I'm standing here and I'm just holding, he can punch, but if I pull, his arm will slightly pull back to adjust the shoulders. So you can use that to your advantage. If you're smaller or you have to make something to close that distance, when he blocks there and you go to do your front trap, and you got to let your other hand come across, and there's your front to front. So instead of front to rear, I go in here, front, this hand's going to ride up to the forearm, there's my front to front. So some of you are going to like that one even better than the first one. So the alternative to that is my rear trap. These are my traditional traps. He makes the block on here. Now before, he was on my forearm and I would slide this hand across, but I can't come to the outside. He's not crossing his center, so all it's going to do is put me in a worse position. So instead, my bottom hand, or my back hand, is going to take the inside line. So when I enter in, I try to hit, enter in, and there's my traditional rear to front trap. There's a few things going on there as I enter. There's my strike. I'm removing the hand out of the way, but if I let this go, that hand's going to come up and hit me or block. I don't want either of those things to happen. So when I let go of that hand, watch my left elbow right here, slide across, and take control from there as I make my strike. Also pushing them back to be able to take the balance. Take someone's balance and then you hit them, they're going to fall to the ground. If you just slip them stand there, they can absorb a lot of that punch. So 1, 2, inside slap, hit to the neck. The variation, if you're smaller, is your rear to rear position. So I'm going to go 1, 2. I realize I don't have anything from there. I'm going to close in with my other hand to get the control. Again, 1, 2. There's my rear. There's my rear to rear. If this arm is in the way, or if he does slide it up to punch, I would just switch and make my strike from there. All right, so quick recap. I have my front to rear, rear to front, rear to rear. I enter, he blocks my forearm, front to front to rear, rear to front, and rear to rear. Okay? So those are the alternate trap positions from the outside bridge, using your analytical combat principles and the trapping principles from the Wing Chun drills.